During the Gaza war, many Palestinians have claimed that Israel is a colonizer and occupier of Palestine. However, historical facts prove otherwise. Half a world away, a true occupation is underway in East Turkestan, the homeland of the Uyghur people. A coalition of 60 global groups are now urging the U.S. Senate to pass the Uyghur Policy Act. The legislation would recognize East Turkestan as Chinese-occupied territory. Well, joining us with more is the former Prime Minister of the East Turkestan government in exile, Salih Hudayar. Salih, it's good to talk with you again. So many of our viewers are unaware that the People's Liberation Army actually invaded East Turkestan in 1949. They call it Xinjiang province, but East Turkestan, like Tibet, has been occupied ever since then. So this act has already received approval by the House. Tell us, why is it so important to the Uyghur people?
The root of the ongoing genocide against Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples is none other than Chinese occupation and colonization of East Turkestan. Recently, as you mentioned, the House passed the Uyghur Policy Act, which doesn't yet recognize East Turkestan as an occupied country, but takes certain steps, such as appointing a special coordinator for Uyghur issues at the U.S. State Department. We are calling on over 61 Uyghur and other East Turkestani organizations from across the globe have signed on to a joint letter urging Congress to, one, thanking the House for passing the Uyghur Policy Act, but also urging the Senate to pass it, as well as to introduce a resolution or legislation to recognize East Turkestan as an occupied country to underscore the root of the ongoing genocide.
Well, what would this act actually accomplish then? Is it more than just a declaration? Are sanctions or other consequences included in the act if China does not end the occupation?
Well, so this is the first step. It would reiterate that China's occupation of East Turkestan is illegal. It would give moral and spiritual support to the East Turkestani people. It would resist China's attempts to erase East Turkestan for momentarily. It would be like the very first basic step taken by the United States before any other real concrete actions are taken to support East Turkestan against Chinese occupation.
Well, we've detailed a lot of their atrocities over the years here, over the last 4 years at least, and I'm sure a lot of people, though, are skeptical that this act would actually bring about change when many members of Congress and other politicians and business people are benefiting financially from close ties with the Chinese Communist Party. So you've told us before that as many as 3 million Uyghurs may be imprisoned or used by the CCP for forced labor. So are Nike, other companies still manufacturing products in China that use Uyghur forced labor? Tell us what you know about this. I mean, which ones are still involved? Which ones have stopped?
Unfortunately, many of these companies are still continuing to use Uyghur forced labor and slave labor in their supply chains. You have, big companies like Pfizer, Tesla, Apple that are profiting from the genocide and forced labor of Uyghurs, unfortunately. But what this resolution and what the other asks that we have called on the U.S. Congress to initiate would do is apply maximum pressure on China, but also send a signal to the business communities that that they need to start pulling out. And many have already started pulling out China, but we just need it to be more faster and swifter.
Is Nike still there? Do you know?
Unfortunately, yeah, Nike is still operating in China, and some of its suppliers are still tainted with Uyghur slave labor.
Okay, so what can our viewers do about all this?
The first thing, over the 5 years, the American public have learned about the Uyghurs. They've learned about the fact that the Uyghurs are facing genocide. Now it's time to learn that the Uyghurs had their own nation. They were historically an independent nation, and they're striving to regain their independence once more. And so they should, urge their members of Congress to support, adopting a resolution recognizing East Turkestan as an occupied country, and urging the U.S. government and their elected officials to explore the possibilities of an independent East Turkestan.
Okay, Salih Hudayar, spokesman for the East Turkestan government in exile. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.